This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here with winemaker Justin Drakehall from Nk'Mip Cellars in beautiful British Columbia. How are you today, sir?
Excellent, Jamie. Welcome to my podcast, if you will.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm glad to be a part of your tasting here today, and I'm really excited to taste Talon with you.
Excellent. We're going to taste the Nk'Mip Cellars 2020 Talon. Tell us a little bit about this wine, because this is a blended wine, an assemblage, if you will. Tell us a little bit about it. I was tasting it last night with a friend, and I was absolutely blown away by it. She had never tasted anything like it. So tell us a little bit about this one.
Here's a quick story. We won't drag it on for too long. I'm really good at talking, by the way.
Oh yes, you are.
Nk'Mip is extremely hard for people to pronounce. I've been asked 10,000 times in my life, and I just tell them, I am proud of the land and what it means, and I have to explain it all the time. But at some point, we had a sales team that was saying, listen, your wines are fantastic, but people cannot pronounce Nk'Mip, and they can't pronounce, we have Merim, which is marriage in the Okanagan language, and there's an upside down E. I think there's 3 apostrophes in the word Merim, and they call it Miriam and all these other words. I said, can you make something? Let's come up with a name. We want 2 wines out of you that are, we're fairly, austere wines overall. They're dry. They're not super tannic or drying. They are dry whites and reds, so on average. And so they said, can you make something a little bit softer? And they gave us an example. We have Dreamcatcher, and then we have Talon. And these were super easy to pronounce names in restaurants where people wouldn't feel intimidated by saying Nk'Mip. Quemquemt is another name. It's extremely hard to pronounce when you don't have our background of Salish language. So they come up with Talon and Dreamcatcher, which is like, it's still, you've got good symbolism. You think Talon, like eagle claw type of thing. And then you look at our label and it's very clearly native of some sort, Okanagan to be exact. And then you have Dreamcatcher, which of course Dreamcatcher is very, very native overall. So Talon is a blend of Syrah mainly. We're looking for super soft and jammy, almost Shirazi characteristics, if you will, as our QQ Syrah, which we're looking for that earthy, white pepper, totally different style. Yes. We're bringing Cabernet Sauvignon into the blend because you're getting a little bit more alcohol. You're bringing some boldness and tannin, a small amount of Malbec and Cab Franc. These are varieties that I might sound like thrown together blend, but it's actually specifically designed for a very specific purpose. Soft tannin, elegance, texture, body, and then also high aromatics. So Syrah and Malbec really, really bring those aromatics to your nose. And then again, there is a little bit of RS in this wine. There's about 3 grams. Now, I know what you're talking about when you say, I love these, austere wines. I do as well. But this wine is your Tuesday night fan club wine. You got some friends over. I can't tell you the amount of my friends that absolutely love Talon. Wine drinkers, non-wine drinkers, women, men, aliens. This wine has got a great balance of texture and acidity from the South Okanagan Valley.
Now, does the blend change from vintage to vintage? Have you ever included any other grapes within that blend under the Talon name?
We used to add more Merlot, and it really takes away from the Syrah characteristic. The Cabernet works well. Cab Shiraz has been an ancient, long variety. And if we had more Cabernet, we would probably just add that instead of the Cab Franc. But the Cab Franc still brings that sort of texture to the mid palate as well. It's got the Okanagan Cab Franc, specifically Oliver, gives you this mid palate tannin that's just absolutely gorgeous without being tannic or drying either. Cabernet can be a little bit tight, a little bit drying, and so the Cab Franc is a nice filler. The Malbec, again, brings very, very soft tannins from the Okanagan. If anything, it's almost like a very light Syrah, if you will, but aromatics, these high fruit tones. The blend changes slightly, only because it depends on how much of the other blends we're making.
Yeah,
we do make reserve tier Cabernet, so if we make a little more, you're getting a little less in Talon. But we try to keep it consistent year after year. The old styles were Merlot based, more Merlot. I just didn't care for them as much. I loved the Syrah, peppery, Shiraz-y tone, if you will. And with a little bit of RS, it's not Shiraz in a style, but
no, I know where you're going.
It's a little more jammy. And overall, we're looking for a very designed wine. We're not just throwing this blend together saying, oh, it's a red blend of, because I find that when you do that, you really get a red blend. It's just mumble jumbled. I can't tell which variety is dominant here. Typically in the Okanagan, it is Merlot. A lot of people have Merlot here. And I wanted something different. I wanted to feature the Syrah Shiraz, which is probably 70% of the blend now, 60, 70%, because it keeps that kind of high peppery, jammy tone. And the moment you put Merlot, it becomes plum and dried fig. And that's not what I'm looking for. We have a Merlot, we have a Meritage, we have a Cabernet, we've got all these. I need something that's separate and different. And this is the way that I get there, is Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of Malbec, and a little bit of Cab Franc.
Now, something that we haven't touched upon today, despite the fact we've been talking for quite is cooperage, is oak barrels, really. Tell us a little bit of thoughts on that.
Oh man, this is a discussion I've had a million times with the old winemaker. We have a style, let's say. I bring a wine home and I try to taste a new wine on my wife, and she's like, oh, clearly it's Nk'Mip. I'm like, God damn, come on. Like, she's like, you have a barrel style. And I think that's cool. But at the same time, I want to try to separate the wines a little bit more. We use a little bit in Nidallier, Sigmund. I've got very specific toasting that I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah.
Same thing with the Chardonnay. Now, you had mentioned fires in another conversation. I don't like medium plus barrels in my portfolio anymore.
Your toast level.
Yeah, it's too reminiscent of that Guayacol smoky tone. Cabernet, I love it. It brings chocolate and coffee. I'm not totally fond of it in all my barrels. I have Alain Fouquet, which is a medium plus, but it comes out as more vanilla and almost, pretty sweet tones. And so I'm good with that.
But would it be a fair enough observation to say that in previous vintages of your wine, there was quite a bit of medium plus?
In the older versions.
Yeah.
In the older versions, absolutely. And I would say in the past 3 years, probably because the Okanagan's been plagued with fires, every other year has got a fire. Not that we've had smoke taint in our wines, luckily, knock on wood again.
Yeah.
But when I do taste, it's like, it reminds me of fire and that campfire. I've tasted the wines and it's, I just don't think I like that anymore, I prefer
know exactly where you're coming from.
I want oak for structure. I want oak for sweetness. Our wines used to be a lot oakier. We were in the 50-60% range. And we've been coming back from that. And people are like, well, I think it needs a little more oak. And I look at them and I go, listen, I'm paying $5,000 a ton for these grapes, whatever it might be. I'm paying $1,000 for the oak barrel, or $1,500, whatever it might be again. Which one's worth more? And do you need to mask your fruit with oak? Or do you want to... Randy and I came up with the old winemaker. I want to smell fruit, and then I want to smell the oak boost the fruit and the wine and the spice. I don't want to smell the vanilla and then, I have to search for the red cherry and the other things. It becomes masked at that point. And so we've been backing down. I'd say our new Merlots are around 40%, new oak, mostly French oak as well. I'd say, honestly, in competition, we're doing a little bit less favorable overall because we don't stand out. When you stand out in a pack, in a competition, we still do very well in competition, mind you. But you stick out with those higher oaky tones, and you become a house. But this isn't a barrel toast house. We're a winemaking house. We're growing fruit. I want to smell the fruit. And so, I think 40% is plenty of oak for a Merlot. And even our winemaker series, we're down at about 35. Same with Talon. I want that fruit to shine. And then maybe a little bit of the sweetness to come through from the oaky tones, which you'll find in that Talon.
Yeah, that was about to
say. You don't smell it and go, this is beautiful oak. And then a little bit of something red wine in the back. Hell no. You taste Syrah, you taste that Shiraz, you taste these little bit of ripe tones, and then you taste the sweetness and the spice of the oak, and you go, what I would say, not bad.
Now, you were talking about those kind of clumsy red blends where it's just, throwing everything in and seeing what works. Those tend to be more kind of, often are field blends and the like. This is all assemblage, right?
But yes, made separately, blended later. Again, I'm targeting a specific target. I see it. People have always said to me, "You're a real artist," and I'm like, "What? I'm not an artist." And then I kind of really thought about it. I'm picking these apart in my brain. I'm filling in all the holes. I've already got an idea of what I'm going to do. I've got an idea of where the wine needs to go. I could probably blend in the field and then, just slightly adjust later if I need to. But I find I can build the best blend right here in the winery by fitting the wines together later. And if the tannins aren't perfect, I can up the Malbec a little bit or back off on the Malbec. I need a little more texture. I'll go with the Cab Sav. I need a little more fruit. I'll go for the Malbec or the Syrah. But I want it to be more Syrah based overall, as the Syrah in the South Okanagan. And the only way to describe it is this. And people have asked this for the Cabernet, for the Merlot, for the Syrah, and very specifically, Cabernet and Syrah stand out above and beyond all other varieties here in the Okanagan. Are you guys trying to be California, Napa, or are you trying to be, something from France? And I said, I've learned this. Neither. I take inspiration from both, really. And we are cool enough that we're cooler than Napa. We are much warm. We're not Southern Rhone because we're just also too cool.
Yeah.
We're somewhere in the middle. And when you smell our Syrah, you go, it's got jam, but it's very earthy. I can make a Shiraz if I want. I have a hotter block. It's very Shirazy, and I have a cooler block, 2 blocks for strength of Nk'Mip, as I've mentioned 100 times now. I want it to be both worlds. I can only make BC. Why are you asking me if I'm French? I have inspiration from both parts. French come here and they go, your wines are too alcoholic, they're too ripe. Californians come here, they go, your wines are too green, they're underripe, not enough alcohol. What? Somebody make up your mind. Listen, I'm just going to make what I do best, and what I do best is BC, somewhere in the middle. Earth, spice, some sweetness from the alcohol, some texture, but some freshness and acidity of the desert, where we're, still cool climate winemaking. Again, we're in the desert. The nights are down to 10 to 15 degrees. At harvest, we're down at 4 or 5 degrees, and then 25 or 30 in the day. So we only do what we do. And Talon, again, is a very good example of that specifically designed aromatic and texture profile.
You mentioned for you, this could be like a Tuesday night wine with your friends. What would you enjoy? What would you pair this with if you're going to be eating something along with it?
Impossible for me to really say, other than I love the wine by itself.
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
Probably if I'm going to, pair it with something, I'm going to use the Merlot, which has a little more tannin, or I'm going to use, something else. I don't know why. I just really love, again, probably because, first of all, I try not to drink Nk'Mip wine as much as possible, but I do enjoy a glass here and there. You have to drink your own wine, of course, but don't drink it to where you love your brand, because you're only going to see your own brand then. You have to compare against the world, as you know, probably more than anybody. I do taste it. And again, I just enjoy this one on its own, probably because I had an intention for the wine of what I wanted to see it at. I don't think it's necessarily so tannic that you need a big steak, or, it's not acidic that you need to blend it with something, or eat it with something that's rich or something that's, you know, got some fatty textures. It's made to kind of fit the wine that it's quite drinkable on its own.
Yeah.
Not to say it doesn't have the tendency to have it with a meal as well. I don't know.
I'm thinking of, I mean, for me, this would be something, I make a very intensely flavored Chinese style ribs with loads of five spice and things.
Okay.
Quite sticky with a little bit of sweetness on there.
Yep.
I can see that with this. This is really, it's interesting. So I opened it last night, and it's amazing how it's evolved even overnight. It's quite a different wine from the way it was yesterday.
Describe the two, if you remember yesterday. Describe to me then what you were tasting, what you're tasting now, just for my own personal knowledge.
Yeah. No, I found it. You'll just go, what a load of rubbish. No, when I opened it last night, it seemed much more. It was less expressive for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to use the word dumb, because it wasn't that. It was all there, but it wasn't quite as expressive as it is today, because it's just like it's exploding out of the glass today.
Yeah.
And it wasn't yesterday.
So there's going to be a couple things behind this. And I can't say that I intentionally did this, right? It's just the way our style is for our wine here. We make our wines to be, especially the winemaker series, are very approachable upon, a release. You're drinking 2020, I believe it is.
2020.
2020. For Nk'Mip, I always find even our entry level wines are the very best at around for the reds, the 5-year target. So 2020 in 2025, I will say that wine is my optimal. I love them up to 10. I've even had some 15-year-old examples that I'm still fairly fond of. Mm-hmm. They start to fade off in those spectrums of dried fruits and things. But 5 years is the optimal for me. Yeah. And now it's taken you one night in glass. Now this was just released last year. It's fairly young wine technically. And so it needs that time to develop in bottle. Now, if you aerate it or open it a day early, you're going to sort of express that process. Exactly. You're gonna take the train to 5 years overnight, and so it's pretty cool that you realize it. And we want to make our wines ageable as well. There's nothing worse than popping a 5-year wine. You go, well, there's no acid left. The wine is flat and flabby. Yeah, it's got a little bit of age, but I probably should have. And for all instances, open it on the first or second year of release. Why wait, right? So if you knew that, then you would say, okay, I should have done this. Nk'Mip wines, even our reserve tier wines, 5 or 10 years is no problem for our wine. It is under screw top, the winemaker series tier, and so that will have some effect on keeping it. Syrah, very low oxygen. It actually mimics the very best cork, the example that we use. There's other examples, more oxidative, or Syrah tin, which is no oxygen. We did use Syrah tin at one point. We didn't have any reductive wines. We just thought, why take the chance when you can?
Well, it almost puts them into stasis, right? It doesn't.
A little bit. So the example you have here is a very young wine. It does need some time. Again, swirl in the glass for 5 minutes. Most people are talking chinwag and doing this, and it'll come out anyway. But I'm glad. It was very good to hear. I'm glad this. That's good. That's good news for me. We're doing something right, and we're following the tradition of Nk'Mip then.
Justin, thank you very much for joining us for this extensive interview session we've been doing today. There's going to be a lot of editing going on over the next week, I would imagine. But thank you so much for your absolutely wonderful descriptions of all the wines and an insight into what goes on at your winery. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed being a part of your show. It's absolutely incredible.
Hopefully we will see you in Ontario at some point. It would be good to share a glass of this.
I was just out there a few weeks back. She was in May, so 8 weeks back roughly.
All right,
I got to visit the Arterra properties.
Yes,
We went to a couple of the wineries as well. Q, which was a new winery.
Yeah, that's one they just acquired that. Yes, yes.
Yeah, I bought some excellent examples of rosé.
Of course.
Very different profiles of wines. You know, some people are like, Ontario can't make wine. It's not that. Again,
wait a minute. Who says Ontario can't?
Oh, there's people out there. Okay, let's say reds then in that example. I'm like, but you know what? It's not that they're just not as jammy or as intense as the Okanagan.
Different style entirely.
But absolutely. pHs are lower. You have less potassium in your soils, but you keep this natural lower acidity even than we get. They're lighter. They're more balanced in alcohol and tannins overall. They're not big and extracted. You don't need to age them, specifically 5 years. The acidity does stand out more, so you're probably going to age wines nicely with acid, not tannin. It's very, very different balance. And so, again, it's not that you can't make reds. It's just it's a different style.
Very much so.
You said you like acidic wines. Some people like sweet wines. I think you need to realize you don't need to have all these tannin to make a very good wine.
No, I'm very much one for lighter reds these days. So Ontario reds, you know, their Gamay and their Pinots are just, they're hitting that spot for me right now, I have to say.
Oh, I love Ontario Pinot Noirs. It's like the bomb. You make far better Pinot than we do, to be honest.
Well, you have some good producers.
Naramata Bench and OK Falls have very good Pinot Noir. But I do like Ontario Pinot.
Justin, thanks so much for joining us at Good Food Revolution. We hope to catch up with you in the very near future, I hope.
Thank you very much.
Bye for now.
Thank you.